Well, how the heck did that happen? How did we end up with such a bad hire? We thought we were getting this, and then we put them in the job, and within a few days or weeks, we found out this is not at all what we wanted. This person doesn't fit at all. How the heck did that happen? Well, you might have asked yourself that question a time or two. It's kind of a painful place to be. And if you're super optimistic and kind of loyal to your decisions and to your team, you might stick with that bad hire longer than you need to. So, that's not the place we actually want to be. So, you're always recruiting. You hire for competencies, like we talked about in the videos that preceded this one. And if you haven't seen them, back up and watch Hire Smartly in part 1 and part 2 and part 3. And now we're in part 4. So you see, you know how to do all that stuff. And you're all set up to onboard the person so that he or she develops really good understanding of the subtle ins and outs of your organization so that they can actually understand all the backstories and they can make all the hidden connections that are going to set themselves up for success. They've been immersed in your organization, and you've done that so that their team trusts them. Good job. Good job. Oh, but wait, to quote the philosopher Ron Popeil, there's more. Watch out. Don't make these mistakes along the way. Now, as you go through these and you think, I have made these mistakes and I've learned from them, give yourself a score, right? Give yourself a point. Pat yourself on the back. If you've never made any of these mistakes, awesome. Pour yourself a bourbon and celebrate. But if you keep making these mistakes, they're going to bite you. So here we go. Got a list of them. Here's mistake number 1, creating vague or misleading job postings. Job postings should not be marketing pieces. They should be very clear and they should be pointed at competencies. Mistake number 2, not having a job description that is results oriented. This is what we're expecting this person in this position to be able to achieve. Always lead with results. If you lead with anything else, you're probably going to mislead that person. Here's another mistake. Mistake number 3. If you are relying too much on the interview. The interview, when they come in and sit down, you spend an hour with them or an hour and a half with that person, and you put all of your decision-making eggs in that basket. Don't do it. Mistake number 4, not using phone interviews. It's pretty important that you find out how a person communicates in that 2-dimensional way, which is phone. Not using video interviews as a way to figure out how well they come across that way is the 5th mistake. There are very few jobs where a person is not going to be required to communicate once in a while over video. Real time or recorded, doesn't matter. So you want to find out if they are capable enough to figure out the technology. If you don't use those in the process, you're missing out on a perspective. That's a mistake. Here's the 6th mistake, talking too much in the process. If it's more than 50-50 or 70-30, with the 30 being you talking and the 70 being the candidate talking, for example, then you're talking too much, all right? Although it is a two-way street, it is an interview where they are in effect interviewing you. They're discovering you and your organization, and you them. It should be a shared experience. Here's the 7th mistake, not considering the impact of the real structure that a person is going to be working with on the job itself and on the person who's in the job. You're not considering technology, for example. It's really important that you understand what the technology is that a person is going to be interacting with. Whether it's a lathe or whether it is a really high-end CAD system or anything in between, doesn't matter. What is the technology that a person needs to be able to use that job? They need to see that technology. They need to understand that. And if you just assume, they'll get it without exposing them to that technology, you might end up making a bad hire. Also, another part of the job that is structural is the work environment itself. Is this environment outside all the time or is it inside all the time? Is it outside at night or outside during the day? Or is it inside in an environment where there's no windows? Or is it inside in a noisy environment? What is the work environment like? Is a person going to be standing up all day long or sitting all day long? Are they going to be moving physically from one place to another quickly or not at all? What's the work environment physically, structurally. What's it like? You need to consider the work environment and expose that candidate to that environment so they understand what the impact of the real structure is. Another big impact of that real structure, we're still on just the 7th mistake here, which is not considering the impact of the real structure. You don't consider the impact of the schedule. It's fascinating to me that people who are hired and are told it's a night job, it's a graveyard shift job, and they all say, oh yeah, I can do that, no problem, I could work graveyard. They've never worked graveyard in their life. They go to sleep at midnight or go to sleep at 11 o'clock every single night. They get 8 hours worth of sleep in the dark, right? And then you expect them to work a night shift job? Well, we have highly recommended and even practiced that if a person is going to be working a night shift job, the interview process is at night. Ooh, that just gave you an adrenaline rush. The reason you are in a position where you can hire people is because you don't want to work days anymore, right? But consider schedule. It's important. Consider the structure of the commute. How long does it take? What's it like for them to get from work, if it is a fully in-person kind of job, to the place where the job is? What's that like? Consider the location of the job. Consider all the other stuff that's on the job that we consider structural, all right? So the next mistake that you and I make is not talking to others. This used to be called reference checks. We call it kind of getting stories. That's what we call it. If you don't take time to talk to the people who have worked carefully with that candidate in situations that demonstrate the competencies or not, that is a massive mistake. So making sure that you also, as a part of talking to others, make sure that you look at their social media. I'm amazed at how many times people hire folks and they've never even gone out to look at one of the books or twits or grams or talks at all to find out what's out there for that person. You might save yourself from a really bad hire just by doing that. Or you might enhance your respect for that person by just doing that. Another mistake we make along that not talking to other people thing is it's kind of odd. It's kind of odd, but if it's possible for you to look at their car, if they have one, and kind of get a glance at how they take care of their car, it'll help you understand whether or not they should fit. There was a guy we were interviewing to hire a while back who had been a coffee shop owner and was actually still as a coffee shop owner. He wanted to leave that and go to work for one of the companies that we supported. So we met him at his coffee shop, and then on the way out, he walked us out and said goodbye to us after this first part of the conversation. Walked us past his car and pointed out that that was his car, and his car was a fairly nice car, filthy on the outside. Okay, no big deal. Lived in a climate where it was hard to keep a car clean, but the inside of the car was completely, underline italics, completely full of garbage. Most of the garbage was wrappers and coffee cups, paper coffee cups, and he would take them, drink them, and just throw it in the back and never cleaned it out. He was interviewing for a job that required people to present themselves very well and to be very, very organized and detail-oriented. Ooh, right? Here's another mistake, rushing the process. That's the 9th of the mistakes that we have listed. If you rush the process because you feel desperate to hire somebody, it will never go well. Another mistake is ignoring the halo effect. Don't ignore that. I talked about in the last video. The 11th mistake is giving too much weight to skills over competencies. We talked about that too. Careful, careful. Skills are important. Competencies are much more important. You can gain skills much more quickly than you can gain competencies. The next mistake, the 12th mistake, is not considering the culture in which that person will need to work. They will not change the culture. They will be changed by the culture or rejected by the culture in most cases. The next mistake you and I make in hiring is not considering humor or the lack of humor or humor that doesn't fit. Is it specifically, for example, an affiliative kind of humor, the kind of humor that makes everyone pull together? Or is it a destructive humor at someone else's expense? Understand that, because humor is the glue that holds teams together when they're under pressure. If the humor doesn't fit and you hire them and you didn't even consider their humor, that's a major mistake. Here's the last of our mistakes. Not engaging other team members or key people who will work closely with that person in the decision until after you have gone way down the road, you've made your mind up and you're sure this is the right person. and then you engage those team members, and you're probably not going to be open to that. And then they'll sense that and they won't tell you what they really think. All right, there's a whole bunch of mistakes that you have all avoided, right? Of course, you're not going to make any of those mistakes, right? Bless your heart. Remember, whether the labor market is specific to your enterprise and specific to this job is a tight one or not, don't rush the process. When everything is accounted for, the right person is probably twice as productive as the wrong person. Some situations, maybe even more. Getting the wrong person in the job is incredibly expensive. You know this. It costs time and money. It costs momentum. And the opportunity costs of hiring the wrong person are huge too. You're spending time and energy and money that could have been or should have been spent on other opportunities and other people because you made a bad hire. And it's discouraging to your team. And it kind of erodes your own credibility as a leader. But, of course, you're not going to do that again, are you? As you listen to this Hire Smart series, what they were right at the end of, you probably found yourself saying, we do that already, or we do that already, several times throughout the process. I hope you did. Good for you. Keep it up. Double down on those things. A few of you might have listened to some of these ideas and thought, well, I don't think we do that. It's never even really occurred to me. Well, focus on one or two of those, especially the competency part, and you'll find yourself worlds ahead if you practice this with your next set of hires. All right, here's some last thoughts. If you're experiencing a tight labor market, keep doing all the right stuff. Don't settle for someone who can barely fog a mirror, unless you're in the mirror fogging business, of course. Hire smart. Meanwhile, you've probably already taken up the charge to lighten the load as much as possible on the people and on the teams that already show up for work every day. Good for you. I get it. You just need more people. We all experience it in our organizations, and we've learned to apply in those situations our Hilt Academy motto. It's hard, but don't make it harder than it needs to be, and we're ruthless about that. So join us. Keep looking for structure that makes work harder than it needs to be, and fix it. Look for ways that you as a leader or a manager or a supervisor can lighten the load of those who are already there by removing wasted requirements and by clarifying your expectations. Look for ways to help your individual team members and the entire teams themselves give their best to the few things that matter the most and relax your grip with the rest. And you're probably succeeding at a bunch of stuff daily, weekly. So don't forget to celebrate. We need you to succeed. Keep it up. Hiring is hard, but now you know how to make it so it's not as hard as it is right now. Time to get to work. Thanks for joining me. Here's to you.